church?
We're not in church. Yeah, thanks for the peanut shower. Some would say, other faiths believe you have a chance to come back and make it right. Or you keep coming back to get it right. I'm comfortable saying I really don't know. And it really doesn't matter. Because I'm taught it's how we live today. It's how we express our lives knowing an all-loving God and how we care and love for each other. So, as we've just heard, the story of the prodigal son has many levels to it. There are different approaches for each person in this room. There is a different perspective on how you can read this story. Even when looking up resources, I found that the story is known by different titles, actually. Of course, it's the prodigal son. It's also known as the tale of the two sons, the tale of the lost son, the tale of the running father. I kind of like that one. The dutiful son, and the forgiving father. Each one of those titles seem to have a different focus on a different aspect of the story. A story of a prodigal, by definition, is of one who spends money recklessly. Henri Nouwen, the renowned spiritual writer, engages the story so deeply that he ended up writing a whole book on it, just on the prodigal son. Now, Henri describes his first encounter with the prodigal son as Rembrandt's interpretation of it. He saw the painting and it led him to ponder the story. He says, when I first saw the prodigal son, I had just finished an exhausting 6-week lecturing trip through the United States, calling Christian communities to do anything they possibly could to prevent violence and war in Central America. I was dead tired, so much so that I could barely walk. I was anxious, lonely, restless, and very needy. It was in this condition I first encountered Rembrandt's prodigal son on the door of Simone's office. He says, my heart leapt when I saw it. After my long, exposing journey, the tender embrace of the father and son expressed everything that I desired at that moment. I was indeed the son. Exhausted from long travels, I wanted to be embraced. I was looking for a home where I could feel safe. The son come home was all I was and all I wanted to be. For so long, I've been going from place to place, confronting, beseeching, admonishing, and consoling. Now I desired only to rest safely in a place where I could feel a sense of belonging, a place where I could feel at home. Have you ever felt that way? Ever feel like you've been fighting for, working for, striving for something so long that you're just exhausted? Tired of fighting, tired of striving. You just want that place that is safe, that place that's warm and welcoming, a place that says, come into my arms and rest, your struggle is done. Relax, you are safe here. It doesn't matter what you did right or what you did wrong. It's about rest in the journey. This is a story of homecoming. This is a story of a young person's search and discovery. This is a story of a loving father longing for a complete family. And this is a story of a brother who gets a little green when it comes to parenting. I wonder who each one of us might be in this story. I wonder where the mother is. Is there a mother? If there is, what is her whole reaction to observing this interchange? I know for me in this story, I can often identify with the prodigal. I was raised a good young Catholic. I'm still in recovery. I went to church every Sunday. I excelled at Sunday school. I was an altar boy, and I dreamt of being a missionary priest. In high school, I worked with the worship committee and volunteer student services and was even in a Christian rock band for a little while. And I had my moments of trouble. I even ran away from home for a weekend, not because life at home was so bad, but I just had this need to travel. When it might have worked out better if I told somebody first. As a kid, my nickname was Charlie Brown because of my luck with kites. But as I became a teenager, I think my nickname should have been more like Huckleberry Finn, because I was always looking for the next adventure or the next time to get out of something. After coming into my true self, after discovering who I was, I sought out an organization called Dignity. Dignity was the Catholic mission to the LGBT community. I wanted to remain a good Catholic, though I existed in opposition to the clerical hierarchy of the church. And when the church finally asked Dignity to meet anywhere but on church grounds, I knew it was time for me to leave. The order was enough to tell me I was not welcome here anymore. This was not home. So I took my inheritance and left the church. It is interesting to note that when the prodigal asked his father for his share of his inheritance, the father divides up the property, and a few days later the son is on his way. This is so matter of fact, there is no complaint, no bargaining, and it's just, well, here you go, have fun. I can't help but believe that the father turned around, gave a slight smile, and said to himself, he'll be back in a day or so. So what was my inheritance? What had the Catholic Church gave me to take with me as I left? Well, it taught me to ask questions. Thanks to some very liberal teachers. And it gave me a sense of spirituality and spiritual practice. And it allowed me to seek what God and the relationship with the divine meant for me as I walked away from an institution. That's what I carried with me. In Luke, it explains after everything was spent, a great famine broke out. The prodigal spends his inheritance. It doesn't say he spent it foolishly. It's actually the brother who makes comments about it. It doesn't say he spent it wisely. Again, it's actually the brother who makes comments about it. The guy's a little jealous. It just says everything was spent. Spent. Exhausted. Beaten, burned out, bushed, dead tired, and done. Spent can have a lot of meanings. And in this story, they almost all apply. Now, who hasn't felt that way? I mean, just the day-to-day of trying to get by, who hasn't felt completely spent? Or wondered what they're spinning their wheels for at one moment or another? I know I had felt spent. It was funny, when I was young, I left Detroit to go to Chicago for a weekend, and a friend came with me, and without thinking about it, he put all his stuff in my car. All his stuff in my car. I was just going for a weekend, but then got to Chicago and went, hey, I have a friend in California. I had no intention of returning to Detroit. I spent about 2 months in Long Beach area searching for a job. Now, this was early 80s. And finally, I had a job interview, and I went there, and there was a sign on the door that said, quote, went to Disney. Only in California. I swear it's true. But that was it. I went back to Detroit. I had my ups and downs. I had good times and bad. At one point, I had been kicked out of what had been my home in the desert, with my bags literally outside the door, and I had to sue just to gain some of my other belongings and my semblance of retribution for 3 years of work I had done in the face of business. I had to get emergency housing, was put up in a hotel that leaked as it rained in a cold winter desert. Nothing compared to our cold, but comparatively speaking. I ended up sleeping on couches and floors in several weeks and eating lots of sandwiches as I waited for assistance to come through so that I might find a place to live. In my own life, the famine had hit. And I was exhausted. And I was beaten down. And I was hungry. Hungry spiritually for some sort of strength. So I returned to the church. Not the Catholic Church, but a Christian church. Ironically, the first place I went to was so busy that they were standing at the doors. I guess they had a special event. It was SRO, standing room only. So I went to another church. I quietly walked in and I sat in the very back row. I returned as a prodigal, beaten and exhausted and tired of fighting for scraps. Now the minister didn't see me coming from a long way off and run out to greet me. No, and yet looking back, God did. You see, all the time I was seeking and searching and surviving and living and partying and fundraising and educating, no matter what I was doing, my inheritance, that deep down spiritual life and connection to God was still there, informing my every move. When I felt I was entirely spent, God came running out to greet me. I can't tell you what was said or what was sung or how the service even went that day. I can tell you I cried. I cried out of exhaustion. I cried out of frustration. I left what was bitterness and pain in the church that day. God had come running out to greet me. It is interesting that in the story, the son comes seeking forgiveness, seeking to be made the lowest in his father's house, seeking nothing but some semblance of a life. Yet, just as he is barely in sight, his father sees him and is moved. That's what the story says. While still a long way off, the father caught sight of the child and was deeply moved. Now, I know I've been playing with some synonyms today, but let's keep going. To be moved is a visceral reaction. It's to be fired up, to excite, impassioned, to stimulate or inflame. This is strong words if you hear it that way. It's not just, here he comes. It's something deep within that he went running out to greet him. This is a once-in-a-lifetime type of reaction, so much so that the father doesn't hear the son's plea of forgiveness, but throws his arms around him, kisses him, rings and robes, and throws a party. Why such a visceral reaction? Why was it so strong? Well, remember in my version I said the father walks away with a grin on his face thinking he'll be back. But if you play with the father's mind a bit further along, you might have been thinking, oh, I've been there and I've done that. He needs to learn his lesson, which turns into the son stays a little bit farther gone, and then he says, I suspect, what did I do here? I hear the father further thinking, I'll wait, he'll learn his lesson. But then he doesn't come back right away. The son stays gone till he has spent his inheritance. Taking consideration what the father has when the son returns, I suspect that was a pretty darn good inheritance. Therefore, no matter how he chooses to spend it, it took a while to be spent. I know this is a story to display God's love and welcome him back into the flock, quote, a sinner, but it's using humans as an example, which makes me think if we are created in the image of God, not exactly like him, not exactly perfect, but the image of God, God's own behavior might resemble some of ours. So the father is a little smug at first. Let me give my son a taste of the real world, a taste of freedom, and he'll be back quickly before the world is nothing as he imagined. But then that day turns into a few days, and then weeks, and then months, and soon it has been a long time with no word, no sign of his son. Is he doing well? Has he fallen into the wrong crowd? What if he's in jail? What if he's sick, or worse yet, dead? You know how a parent mind works. First you're angry, let him have it, and then you start going down the list of everything that could go wrong. The longer the time apart, the more worried the father becomes. The longer apart, the greater the possibility of no return. So even if it was 1 day, or 1,000 days, I think the greeting would have been the same. And a passionate, joyous welcome home. You see, the father in the story, just as God, doesn't really want to let us go. But that's what free will is about. It is in God's nature to let us go in spite of our it's God's better judgment even. Henry Nouwen speaks of it this way. How much would he have liked to pull them back with his fatherly authority and hold them close to himself so that they would not get hurt? But his love is too great, so great that he cannot constrain, he cannot push, nor pull. It offers the freedom to reject that love or love in return. It is the immensity of the divine love that the source of divine suffering, God, creator of heaven and earth, has chosen to be first and foremost a caring parent. God has chosen to be a parent who sometimes must set us free to allow us to do what we must do to become who we are meant to become. I mean, how many times have one of us looked back down our lives and said, I would not be here now if I had not gone through what I have gone through? I actually could not write what I wrote today, or any day for that matter, if I had not lived the life that I have lived. Yeah, I often do look back and go, what if? But if I were given an opportunity to go through it all again, I would, because it's brought me here, right here in front of you. God the parent grieves when we separate ourselves from the love that is extended, and yet as soon as we start to walk back, God comes running out to greet us. No need for confession, there's no concern there. Confession is what we hold against ourselves. And that's what the need for confession is, to let it go and give it to God. You see, there is no lust, greed, anger, resentment, jealousy, or vengeance in God's lost children that have not caused immense grief to God's heart. From the deep inner place where love embraces all human grief, the Creator reaches out to the children. The touch of God's hands radiating inner light only seeks to heal. This is the lesson of the moment of assurance we have here every Sunday. No matter who you are or where you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. There is nothing you can do, nothing you can say, nothing you can think, nothing you can pray that will separate you from the love of God. But yet God goes further. God goes over the top. Isn't that what the parable portrays? Every now and goes on to comment that I realize that I am not used to the image of God throwing a big party. Well, that might be an understatement, but yet, when you look at Jesus' life, he's always with friends, always with food, and always with wine. So that's what the kingdom of God looks like. It's looking like a big party. But we all have an image of God that is, many of us were raised with this image that is all commanding and judgy and powerful and dead serious. So where did that concept of God throwing a party come from? As followers of Christ, there isn't so much of this judginess going on in Christ's teaching. If Christ's life is any example, we should not be surprised when we hear the story of a loving parent that throws a huge party at the return of a child. As in this parable and many others, God is waiting. Just waiting to throw a big feast. Not only is the invitation there, the party will start without you until you arrive. As in another parable, it doesn't matter when you show up, just show up, for the last will receive just as much as the very first. Celebration belongs to God's kingdom. God not only offers forgiveness and reconciliation and healing, but wants to lift us up as these gifts, as a source of joy for all who witness them. We get the honor of witnessing it here every week, day by day. People walk in here. This is a place where you are welcome as part of the Creator's loving family. And this is where this family works together to let other people know they are welcome, with our meals and with our projects and with the quilts and with rummage sale that the funds go to, and with whoever just baked some cupcakes for us today. It goes on, whoever made the coffee this morning. God, there's nothing that can keep us away from God's table. Nothing that can prevent you from participating in the little banquet. God's table every one Sunday a month is communion. That's a little banquet. Because the feast that the Creator actually has set aside for us eventually is even bigger and so much beyond our own imagination. So you see, you're allowed to walk away. It's okay. You're allowed to spend your inheritance. You're allowed to come back home tired, broke, spent. The loving parent that is God will be waiting for you to clothe you, to heal you, give you respite. The loving parent is ready to throw you a feast, a party to allow you to sing and dance. And I truly enjoyed the way Reverend Carrie Landry expressed it in a song. And the Creator shall dance as on the day of joy God will exalt over you and renew you with God's love. All of this is so that when you are ready, you can step boldly out and proclaim that you are a child of God and you can welcome others into the fold. Amen. Please rise and bow your spirit as you're able and join us in singing hymn number 9 in the blue book.